Hello everyone and welcome to the last game we'll be showing from round 10. Round 11 started already, but I didn't have time to make coverage of this one yesterday, so I'm doing it now. Hope you guys don't mind, but it is a very important one to cover, so let's dive straight into it. It's Rapport versus Liren, and it is quite the game. We talked a little bit about it in the previous video. Now let's see what actually happened. The opening, pretty standard. We have e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and the bishop to b5. Ruy Lopez is on the board. Sorry about that. And before we dive deeper into the Ruy Lopez, we also have a nice photo of this encounter. There you have it, the first move being made by Alexandra Kostenyuk. So let's check it out before we enjoy the game. There you have it, as you guys have requested more photos. And of course a6, Morphy's defense, with bishop to a4, knight to f6, and now d3, the Anderssen variation. You guys know why it's called that, because you've seen the Paul Morphy saga. b5, bishop to b3, and bishop to c5. Now we have bishop to g5, again, all been played before, h6, bishop to h4, and d6. We have c3, and the bishop back to a7, castles, and now knight to a5, going after the bishop. So very standard Ruy Lopezian stuff. You guys all know this. We have bishop to c2, and now we enter the game that was played only once before between Fabiana Caruana and John Burke last year in 2021 in the USA Chess Championship. That Fabi won. Burke tried g5 here, and it is a very good attempt. It is in fact the absolute top move recommended by the engine, but the Ding goes for c5. It is, well, depends on how long you allow the engine to change its mind. Like at the depth 35, it's gonna say g5. At depth 36, it's gonna say b5, or rather c5. At 37, it's gonna say g5. At 38, it's gonna say c5. So the engine can't really make up its mind. So it's hard to say how deep Ding analyzed it, but he said, all right, this was already tried against Fabi in the US Championship. Let's go with c5, and it is now, as of move 11, that we have a completely new game. Rapport continues development, knight b to d2, and only now pawn to g5. We have bishop to g3, and now knight to h5. So putting pressure on the bishop, but also in some lines maybe the knight wants to come to f4. We have a3, now preparing b4, and rook to b8. And this is very interesting. Usually when you have a position like this, you're thinking, how do I get rid of the light square bishop so I can play rook to c8? Well, Ding wants to put the rook on the c file, but he's not, all that interested in the light square bishop. He's gonna play rook b8, rook b7, rook to c7. That's how Ding's gonna do it. King to h1. It's important to get the king away from this diagonal. You want to move the knight, you want to strike with f4 at some point, and so on. So rook b7 and pawn to b4. Challenging the knight here, grabbing more space on the queen side, knight to c6, and now bishop to b3. The rook also very useful here, guarding the 7th rank and that f7 weakness, as you know, if the f file opens up, it could be a problem. But Ding decided to keep the king in the center of the board. Now you could castle here, it's possible, but Ding says nope, we're keeping the king in the center. Rook to c7, bishop to d5 now. And pawn to g4 now. Challenging the knight, we have bishop to h4, attacking the queen first, knight to e7, and now knight back to g1. We have c captures on b4, and now Rapport could go for c captures on b4. And even though you always want to capture towards the center, this kind of comes with a pawn sacrifice if you play a captures on b4. But Ding's king is in the center of the board, so Rapport not interested in counting pawns. He plays a captures on b4. Also, this gives his rook the semi-open a file. So rook captures on c3, and now knight to e2. Attacking the rook, rook back to c7, and now f4. Not wasting any time, he wants to go after Ding's king. f6 by Ding, f captures on e5, d captures, and now knight to g3. Attacking the knight on h5. So Ding trades, knight captures, and now not bishop captures, but h captures. He wants the bishop to keep attacking the f6 pawn. Rook to f8 by Ding, and now rook captures on f6. Rook captures, bishop captures, and queen to d6. Now attacking the bishop. And what can Rapport do here? Well, he plays queen to f1, defends the bishop, and now bishop to d4. And again, what can you do here? How can you improve your position, increase the pressure? How do you create some attacking chances with the king still being on e8? Well, we reach the position from the thumbnail. Bishop to f7 with check. And now, of course, the king cannot capture the bishop. If you capture, then we open up a discovery here and we pick up the black queen. Also, if queen here, this is also guarded by the bishop and the queen. So instead, king to d7. By Ding getting out of check, and now rook to d1, preparing to move the knight and then attack the bishop, then push the pawn, open up the d file and attack the black king. So rook to c2 by Ding, and now bishop back to b3, attacking the rook here. And Ding plays rook back to c7. We have knight to c4. That's the good stuff. This is the move that you guys probably thought that I was going to use as a thumbnail, and I thought about it, but I decided to go with the bishop to f7-1 as, I don't know, it's kind of nicer. Or if you don't want to go for this, you could also just repeat bishop f7, rook c2, bishop to b3, and both of them would very likely agree to a draw. But Rapport wants more. He has the white pieces, and he's not letting Ding off the hook that easy. The king is on d7. I mean, look at that light square bishop. We are not we're not calling this a draw. So knight to c4, attacking the queen, and you don't really have a good move. If you capture here, then we go after the e5 pawn, and that king will be wide in the open. Not something you want to play. So Ding accepts the sacrifice, and he says, let's play. Pawn captures, and now what is Rapport's actual threat here? Well, let's play a silly move, let's say h5, and see what it is. It's c5. This is Rapport's threat, and if Ding allows this, Ding can resign. The queen now has to move. We're going to capture the e5 pawn. You're not going to be able to capture back, and without this pawn bishop barrier in the center of the board, Ding's position just crumbles. So after this, D captures on c4. Ding has to somehow deal with this, and he finds a very nice idea. Rook to c6. Now c5 doesn't work because we just captured the bishop. That's the point. But it also allows the bishop to a4. Why did Ding allow this? Well, because this is also good for Ding. It is in fact the strongest move that Rapport can play, but it is the best move that Ding has. So Rapport goes for the rook and king to c7. Again, you can't push the pawn because the bishop would hang. So here we have to capture the exchange. Bishop captures, knight captures on c6, and now pawn to b5. Continuing to push the pawns, knight to b4, and now pawn to c5. Beautiful pawn pushing technique by Rapport. The bishop cannot capture because the queen hangs. If queen captures, then rook to c1 again will be very, very problematic. So queen to e6 by Ding, and now just bishop back to h4. And now how do you play this? Bishop captures on c5. We eliminate some of the pawns here, but still the king is wide in the open. Rook to c1 attacks the bishop, queen to d6 defends the bishop, and queen to c4 yet again attacks the bishop. We have knight to d3, now defending the bishop, and here rook to c3, attacking the knight here, threatening to just pick it up, and it's a very, very difficult position to play for Ding. You have to play it very, very precisely, otherwise you're just going to lose. But there is one move that allows you to seek advantage and even play for the win, so feel free to pause the video and try to find this idea while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on realizing that you do not need this knight and the bishop pair is all you need to win this game. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is of course a captures on b5. We grab that and now, well, we offered the knight, but we don't care. We're going to start pushing our pass pawn, and that will be sufficient. I forgot to mention, instead of this idea of rook to c3, you could also just play bishop to e7. That move actually allows Rapport to kind of force a draw here because, well, what do you play? If queen captures, now we capture the knight on d3, and if king to b6, we're just going to play b captures on a6, and after bishop captures, let's say queen d5, and the king is on b6 completely in the open. You're not going to be able to get out of checks. But okay, rook to c3 was played, and Ding goes for the absolute strongest a captures on b5, offering the knight here. If you you play queen captures on b5, it's nothing serious, just bishop to a6, and then black is better. So this is the only try. Queen captures on d3, queen captures, rook captures, and now bishop to d4. Again, the only winning idea for Ding. You have to cover the b2 square, and now the pawn will start marching forward. We're going to also cover this diagonal, so it's not a problem. And this bishop here is doing nothing. Even though Rapport is up the exchange, it doesn't matter. We have bishop to f6, still with one last trick. Let's say if Ding pushes b4, then we have rook to b3. And after the bishop c3 move, we have bishop to e7. That's the idea. So Ding, of course, figures this out. King to b6 is played. We have rook captures on d4, as now you really don't have anything better. The king and the bishops will simply escort the pawn down the board. So rook captures here, and now e captures on d4. Bishop captures on d4. Now it's equal material, opposite colored bishops, which usually tends to be a draw, but not here. King to a5, getting out of check. King to g1. The white king is so far away from all the action. Pawn to b4, king f2. Now comes king to a4, king to e3, king to b3, and now king to f4. We have king to c2, king to e5, and now pawn to b3. King to d6, we have king to d3 attacking the bishop, bishop to a1, and king captures on a4. It doesn't matter how you play this. King c5, king to d3, and it was in this position that Richard Rapport resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Your g4 pawn is defended by the light square bishop, so of course once you give up this bishop for the pawn, it's all over. Let's say we play a few more moves, king b4, king c2, bishop somewhere or anything, we're just going to push the pawn. You're going to have to capture it in order to avoid playing against the queen. And now we simply have this pawn guarded. We're going to gobble up these pawns, and that's it. We're going to escort this pawn down the board. We don't even need this pawn. White can capture it. So it's completely winning. Ding. Rapport, of course, doesn't want to play this, and here he resigns on move 55. We even have a nice photo of the resignation. So here it is. You can see a nice handshake. Not the firmest of handshakes, but it's a nice one considering the game and the situation in the candidates tournament. So there you have it. And also for maybe those of you who haven't seen the standings in the previous videos, here are the standings after round 10. Yanni Pomnici extended his lead by a full point and a half. Then we have a three-way tie between Fabiano Caruana, Hikaru Nakamura, and Ding Liren. And we have Rajabov on 4.5, Duda, Rapport, and Firuzja sharing last place basically with 4 out of 10. So yeah, that's the game, some photos and the standings. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Today is round 11, where the leader Yanni Pomnici will be facing Alireza Firuzja, who is currently in last place. So he has nothing to lose. He has the white pieces against the leader Nepo. Will he go for it? I'm sure that he will, because I've already seen some of the moves. So I think we're in for a great game. But yeah, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to wish a very happy birthday to Nashi, and I would like to thank Clever Piggy, Odol and Ferdi, Forever, Michael Hope Consulting, and Alan Chevalier Moore for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the candidates until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And if you're wondering where Medo is, he's actually right here. Sometimes he's on the couch, sometimes he's on the floor. He's just like that. He does what he wants. So see you soon.